Hey guys, so as a parent, watching a family film these days can sometimes feel like competing on the show Wipeout, forced to navigate countless unexpected obstacles to reach the end without your child sporting too many bruises or just covered in too much mud. And kind of against that backdrop, is Dogman more of the same from recent Hollywood, or is this the kind of film that I think a lot of parents have been asking for? I have seen it, so let's talk about it. So, as some of you guys know, I am the father of two awesome 10-year-old twin boys, and they are both very big fans of the wildly popular graphic novel series Dogman from author Dave Pilkey, who is also the author of the undisputed modern literary classic Captain Underpants. So I've been hopeful, kind of cautiously optimistic about this film adaptation, and thankfully I can say that I think this is a film that I think both younger viewers and their parents can enjoy together, bursting with this creative energy, clever humor, and wholesome themes. I think Dogman is a delightfully fun, if a little bit overstuffed, animated tale. And animated family films often come in, I think, one of two varieties. There's those that aim low with like a hyper sugar rush of diverting entertainment, a la like the Minions movies. And then there are those that aim high with thematically mature, kind of make grown adults cry type stories, such as the recent like Wild Robot, and I think Pixar when it's at its best. And I think Dogman probably strays more towards the former, but ultimately does chart, I think, a desirable path, kind of right down the middle of those two tonal identities. On the surface, it is an unabashedly silly, with this frantic action, I think like a near nonstop bombardment of gags. At the same time, while no one is likely to mistake this for like a tearjerker with great emotional depth, there is a surprising amount of just heart and I think mature messages that can be found in the middle of its very zany plot and goofy humor. And if you're like, unfamiliar with the books, despite existing in a world where some animals can talk, Dogman himself, both like before and after his like Frankenstein-like creation, remains a speechless dog. And I think like centering on a protagonist that cannot talk is just a really like amusing storytelling exercise. I think he is a more like, endearing character largely because of those limitations. And to like compensate for its inarticulate hero, the film also does provide a collection of other fun and kind of quirky side characters, such as Petey, who is like Dogman's feline arch rival, and Lil Petey, who is like Petey's cute childlike clone. And in fact, like, although Dogman may be like the title character in this show, really those two cats often take center stage. And as expected, based on the source material, I found this movie to be pretty hilarious. It's not the type of movie that's just filled with like an abundance of belly laugh inducing moments, but I do think it will keep viewers like grinning from start to finish. I think it can admittedly be almost a little exhausting at times, simply due to like just the bombastic volume of the jokes, but the humor itself, I think, really intelligent and clever. Yes, there are the occasional gutter level potty gags, but I think most of the comedic elements in this film do reflect sort of the sharp and like, dry wit that I think author Dave Pilkey has become famous for. From the entertaining signs like on the background buildings to the humorous headlines that constantly flash across like TV broadcasts, there are just so many kind of funny, understated jokes in this that will probably take like multiple viewings just to catch them all. I will say that being very rapidly paced and just bursting at the seams with creative ideas, there's just always a lot happening on screen, seemingly at all times. I think for better and maybe also sometimes for worse. I think this film does utilize its like soft color palette and I think very charming, almost claymation-like aesthetic to really great effect. It just seems like nearly every scene throws some fresh new visual idea at audiences as it translates the graphic novels onto the screen in just consistently entertaining and I think inventive ways. At the same time, I think the plot may have benefited at least a little bit from being kept on a slightly tighter leash. Dogman does feel overstuffed, I think attempting just to cram in too many characters and plot elements from across the entire sprawling 13-book series. I think maybe much like something like the Minions movies, it arguably works best as like a sequence of funny moments with amusing characters than it does as like a very traditionally structured 3-act plot. As far as content to consider, things going on the surface of this, really not a whole lot at all. For language, there are several uses of like filler words like geez or a character that says this sucks. There's also a character who declares something along the lines of flippy kaye, flippy floppers, which will mean absolutely nothing to the younger audiences, but many adults will recognize that as like a play off of the movie Die Hard's famous and much more profane quote. Sexuality, nothing going on for that in this film. Violence, nothing here either, except for the fact that like, the central gimmick of a dog's head being sewn on a man's body is an obviously like macabre and like gruesome concept, although it's portrayed like very playfully in the film. First themes, worldview, things going on beneath the surface. I think Dogman has a very simple but wholesome message just about like positive thinking and the importance of love and friendship. Because like each of the central characters to various degrees are products of their upbringing and circumstances. Dogman, he struggles with loneliness, having lost like the presence of his best friend during the process of being like surgically combined with him. Whereas Lil Petey is essentially like a cloning mistake and like an unwanted child. And the same is true of the villains. Like a midpoint introduction of Petey's deadbeat and like hypercritical father exposes like how much of Petey's villainous ways and kind of self-professed miserable existence have been shaped by his unpleasant upbringing and just feelings of abandonment. And even Flippy, who's like an evil telekinetic fish, ultimately reveals that his actions are merely the result of like lashing out in anger due to like hurtful experiences of having been bullied when he was younger. I think the film encourages viewers just to show more grace to people because we don't always know kind of the internal root cause for their external behavior. I think it also shows like how the experience of love and friendship can positively alter our perspective on our circumstances, because there's an early scene in which Petey is on a walk with Lil Petey, and whereas the younger cat sees pretty flowers and like a beautiful lake, he sees only weeds and pollution. But then in kind of like a bookend scene at the end of the film, while walking down that same path, Petey like pulls a trash bottle from the lake and uses that as a vase to put in the weeds, kind of representing his just changed outlook to focus on like the goodness in his future rather than dwell on or like be defined by the bad in his past. I think like in that way, the film's message is maybe reflective of just the biblical exhortation in like Philippians 4:8 to fix our minds on like the good, the true, and the beautiful. I think parents can use this film to just talk to their kids about how, yes, there are difficulties in life, but there are also many just good and beautiful things to enjoy if we choose to focus on them. So in the end, I really enjoyed this movie, as did both of my 10-year-old kids. I think in many ways, Dogman is the type of animated film that many parents have been just wanting to see more of from Hollywood. I think kind of much like the union between a dog's head and a man's body to create the lovable hero, Dogman just boasts a winning combination of having enough like silly entertainment to delight younger viewers and also enough like wholesome messages to please their parents. But hey, love to hear what you thought of this film. If you go check it out, you bring your kids, don't be shy, jump into the comment section. Let's have a conversation about it. If you haven't done so too, encourage you guys, become a collider, subscribe to the channel, lots of other movie reviews, got our Faith and Pop Culture podcast, got interviews, just other fun stuff. Would love to have you guys be a part of that. But most of all, thank you for watching, stay safe, and continue to collide through your world for Christ.